Gender, politics, math. You have no idea where I'm going with this. Or do you?
Gorgeous, baby. You're gorgeous.
This is the Josh Podcast Show. The anti-podcast podcast on God and man. The show that everybody's talking about. The show that will become a necessary part of your weekly mental diet. The show that picks up where JoshRolfe.com leaves off. The show title that uses the word podcast 4 times. Introducing your host, Josh Rolfe.
First things first. Rate the podcast on iTunes. Please. Good luck finding it to rate it on Google Music if you're on Android. I do not get paid monetarily to do this podcast thing. I get paid in likes. The trouble I realize with encouraging reviews is that sometimes people heed the call, but do the opposite of what I'm asking. They give a bad review. If you had to put your name on it, there would probably be nicer reviews. Like YouTube is going, it used to be that you'd watch a video and these poor souls who posted the video would have this string of horrible reviews. And I'd always feel bad. Sometimes they're just downright nasty. The podcast review system on iTunes is anonymous. You can put whatever username you want and give whatever review you want. And such was the case for me last week or 2 weeks ago, my last episode about whether conservatives are funnier than liberals. Someone listened, said they only listened halfway, and gave me a 2-star review. That's 2 out of 5 stars from a lib LDS. So I'm assuming that's a liberal Latter-day Saint or Mormon who I'm guessing, because I think most of my listeners are friends and family, that this is someone I kind of know in my life from Facebook, or maybe they found it another way. They said that my podcast put them to sleep. So that was sweet. 2 out of 5 stars. It would be nice if you haven't ranked it yet. You don't have to write a review. You could just give it 5 stars and that's it. It would make my day. So since I haven't had a positive review in a while, which equals no payment, this podcast is becoming an internship. An unpaid internship. So please, if you have not reviewed the show and wish to give it a favorable rating, go ahead, find it on your phone's iTunes app or on your desktop if you don't have an iTunes app, and rank it there. You can also subscribe to my monthly email for the monthly blog post. I just posted at the end of March a new one called Dead Bob. There's a guy, username Dead Bob, who hacks into my blog to write from the other side of this life. Next up, this episode is on gender, politics, and math. I'm going to go, I addressed are conservatives funnier than liberals? That was 2 weeks ago. I'm stepping into it more by talking more about politics, as I promised to do last episode. I rarely talk politics on this podcast because government relations or government advocacy, there's a lot of different ways, government affairs, government relations, that's my profession. So of course I don't talk about it on the podcast. That would make too much sense. And I know I make no sense, but originally, when I started the blog, I thought I would do nothing but talk politics on the show. But over the now 70 plus episode history, I decided to just completely go off the rails, to talk instead about IKEA and tattoos and the word pizzazz. So today, let's talk politics. And my goal, this will be a 2-part episode. is to talk politics with people who are sick of politics. This is the purpose of the episode. To give those of you who hate politics a reason to like it. And for those of you who like it, maybe you can share with people in your life who hate it what I'm about to say, and it will turn them in some way to at least appreciate it more and not be so upset or get so personally caught up in a negative way. So that's kind of this. This is a therapeutic episode for people on both sides. The ones who hate it and the ones who know people who hate it, who can offer these same words. You don't have to memorize what I'm about to tell you, because what I'm about to tell you does get a little, I kind of go all over the map in this episode. And the next episode, I'm going to lay out in more detail some of the perspectives that I think will help in this cause, which is to help you to appreciate and enjoy politics like I do. If you can answer yes to any of the following questions, then this episode is definitely for you. If you know someone who can answer yes to these questions, this episode is for you. That should include everyone, except for those who just don't care. Are you sick of politics? Are you sick of the fighting? Or do you know someone sick of the fighting? The lying about opponents to score political points, the slimy dishonesty of most politicians, the condescending tone cast against opponents or people who disagree. Do you feel like it's all too much and that you don't know if you can take another election? I hope in this 2-part series that you can see politics from an angle that I will introduce to you, that you can appreciate the adversity. I didn't say diversity. I said the adversity, the conflict, that you can appreciate the painful part of politics, which is kind of the essence of politics, if that makes any sense at this point. We're going to go into that in more detail. What I want to do, to put it another way, is to become your political therapist. Not your marriage and family therapist or whatever other kinds of therapists there are out there, but your political therapist. I want to heal your political wounds. If you've ever experienced politically inflicted pain, if you, for example, got into a political debate unintentionally on Facebook or other social media platform and felt like someone was not understanding your point of view, where you're just commenting and then all of a sudden you get replies from people you know and people you don't know who just want to fight. They don't like you. They don't like what you've said. And you're trying to explain this in a short paragraph. Or have you ever been in a conversation where you've expressed a political point of view or an opinion and were immediately mocked or drawn into a fight? I want you to get over the pain you felt. I want you to not just push it aside, but I want you to understand why you felt pain. If you haven't been able to accept political realities, I want you to learn how to accept it. I want you to embrace it. If you don't like politics, I want you to like it. I want you to love it. I want you to experience that change of heart in all those areas, all at the same time, all during this 2-part episode. That's what I want for you. With that, I'll begin. You all know this is a hyperly if that's a word. It's a hyper politically charged era. It is a super insanely politically charged era. My twin fourth graders, for example, get in debates with classmates over significant policy issues like Vladimir Putin. They talk about taxes. They talk about climate change. We did not do that in the 1985-86 school year. We just came out of the 2016 presidential election, enduring this unbearably contentious contest between two presidential candidates that were hugely disliked. The election was incredibly polarizing. One said sad a lot. The other rolled her eyes at him a lot. And it is true, America faces real problems. There's international, domestic, we've got terrorism, we've got immigration, we've got hot button issues of the day that are always changing and evolving, and there's news and there's different nuance that is introduced. And why does it all matter? For those of you who might be apathetic or know people that just don't care, why does this all matter? And for those of you who care too much or who care moderately, for all those who care from the extremes, from no care to you cry and wet your pillow every night over this stuff, I will try to answer the question of why it matters by talking about a guy who lived a long time ago, who I think is, you know that question, if you could meet anyone in history, who would it be? Well, I would like to meet this guy. It's the great philosopher, Aristotle. And if some of you are laughing right now at that, then, well, I'm a fan of Aristotle. One of my favorite of his books is Nicomachean Ethics, written to his son, which is a book about how to achieve the highest good, how to achieve happiness. And he defines the good. So all of this, we're going to talk about why does politics matter. Aristotle, his book, he's trying to talk about how to achieve the highest good. Individually, that's what he wants. He defines the good as, quote, that at which everything aims. All of our actions are determined, he says, by what we think is good. Right? We're not going to make a decision that we think is a bad decision seeking a bad goal. We want to do good. We want to achieve good. Even if some might call it bad, our goal is to achieve the good. Okay? Our actions, our interests, our decisions, all of these things fall into a certain science. So if I have a desire to get into boating, as in riding a small boat or even a large one, there is a science about seafaring that is my actions or interests or decisions. They all fall into some kind of categorical science. There's agricultural science, there's botanical science, there's technology, there's all kinds of sciences, and what we choose in a career path or hobbies or even family science, there's everything we do falls into a certain bucket of a science. So whatever our interest is or our craft falls into one of these many sciences. And Aristotle says that some of those sciences are better than others. And if you look at the hierarchy of sciences, there are low sciences that are not that important, and there is a higher science, and you keep going step by step to the highest science, And that's where he gets to politics, because he says political science is the ruling science. There's different translations, but I like this one the best. The book is at my office at work, so I can't see who the author is or what the translation is. But he calls political science the ruling science. And he says this because it prescribes how people learn, what the educational curriculum should be. It's the ruling science because it legislates what should and shouldn't be done in the other sciences. So think about environmental science, for example, or food and agricultural science. Government has a role in most, if not all, of the sciences. Prescription drugs, medicine, healthcare, that's big in the news. Politics, that prescribes the rules by which education, I mentioned, but how our children are taught, that all falls within the government. The government sets the parameters by which all of the sciences can operate. And those parameters can be set through legislation, regulation, or not. But that is a value statement. If political science decides that a certain science should be free of government interaction, then that is something the government is allowing. So back to Aristotle's idea of trying to achieve the highest good. Politics, he says, is all about achieving that. So politics is about achieving the highest good. The highest good and the highest form of happiness that he defines are interrelated. So politics is about achieving the highest good, which is happiness, which is the whole purpose of our life on this earth. Am I not correct? There's a lot of different political or ways that politics is used. There's the running for office kind and the passing laws and enacting regulations. And there's other ways that politics, the word, is used in our speech today, contemporarily. There's political correctness, for example. Why is political in that popular phrase? The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says that the government cannot intervene in speech, that free speech is a right. Yet, political correctness, which is not a law from the government, but it provides some cultural definition on what we can and cannot say. So it's a cultural way of obtaining a highest good or a happiness through speech. There's office politics, which is all about how we navigate our work environment and power structures and has a negative connotation, but really it's all about how we're each working to obtain happiness individually, usually through the negative connotation at the expense of another, or to advance ourselves or to protect our territory. All of those things fall within the term office politics. There's family politics, not as popular an expression, but there is some politicking within a family. Politics is about the placement of power. And those who are in power, like in a family, it's usually the parents or parent decides for everyone else what the rules are. And that's why politics is the ruling science, to help us achieve happiness. So just before and after elections, people are usually super worked up. The discussions on Facebook, for example, were causing people to unfriend each other. And while that's sad and all, isn't that so much better than civil war? There were these intense debates on Facebook, and then there were those who said, I'm seeing nothing but politics in my feed, and I've had it. There have been some articles just in the last election, just in 1 month, the last month leading up to the elections, there were, according to Facebook, 67 million people on Facebook in the U.S., generated over 1.1 billion likes, posts, comments, and shares related to Donald Trump. Over 59 million people generated over 934 million likes, posts, comments, and shares related to Hillary Clinton. Isn't that fascinating? So since then, things have died down a bit. At least they have in my feed. But I want to offer a little bit of advice to prepare you a little for the next round of elections and all things political. Especially if you're worked up, I've gone through this. I made the case for why politics is important. It is the ruling science. And so it is something worth and worthy of our attention. And I'm going to give advice in the next episode. I'm not trying to pull a cliffhanger here. I just wanted to set the scene for you in this first episode. I'll tie in how the title, politics, gender, and math all fits together in a way that I hope will help you better appreciate politics.
Thank you for listening to the Josh Podcast Show, the anti-podcast podcast on God and man. For more information, visit joshpodcast.com. Follow Josh on Twitter at Josh Rolfe. That's Rolfe, R-O-L-P as in podcast, H. Now go and have the best day and night ever. And have fun.